So just wanted to welcome everybody, first of all, give everybody a really warm welcome for taking the time to spend with us today to learn about analytics and about Synapse and Power BI, and really spend some time learning about the art of the possible, starting to gather ideas of how that can fit into your own digital journeys. And I know these days, again, there's especially vacation season and all of this, spending this portion of the day with us is a decision that I hope you find very valuable, that you get lots of valuable information. A little bit of housekeeping as we get going. The meeting is being recorded. So just be mindful of that. If you are off of mute or you ask a question or your camera's on, that is being recorded. We will make sure that everyone has access to the recording afterwards. As we mentioned, the labs need to be set up. So again, just letting everyone know, if you are not able to access that link to the lab and the activation code in the chat, to just come off of mute or reply in the chat so that we can help you with that. Because it is a large group, we'll keep everyone on mute for the most part. But if you do have a burning question, you can raise your hand, and I'm sure our presenters will get to you. With their flow, they'll possibly open it up for questions at different times so that we can discuss. And if anyone, has any questions as we move along, we can address those as a group. We do have a pretty packed agenda. We've got, starting soon, we'll go over harness the power of analytics, experience a new class of analytics with Azure Synapse. We'll review how to get started on an analytics project. We will also have Paul from Microsoft. I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'm not going to attempt, but Paul's going to be joining us to show us the Microsoft assessment tool. So that will be of interest to everyone as well. And following that, we'll ask everyone to fill out a survey so that we can really see where people are at and help you with what the next steps would be to engage on this journey of analytics. So we'll put that link up after Paul speaks. We'll have a short break leading up sometime around 11. And then after the break, we'll come back and we'll do a hands-on Azure Lab, and we'll get to see how easy it is to play around with some data sets, and we'll get to really get some hands-on experience of using the tool just to increase everybody's comfort level and familiarity. With that, I did want to start off with the land acknowledgement. I'm in Toronto, and that's so I am going to do the land acknowledgement for Toronto. So the City of Toronto acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. The city also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. So with that, I'm going to give the floor over to Craig Hill. And Craig Hill is a business development manager. He has much experience within the FSI sector, and he'll let you give a little brief introduction to who we are at Lixar fueled by BDO and some relevant work we've done in the industry.
Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully you've all, you're well rested and have a coffee in hand. I know I'm having my first one of the day, so cheers to everybody who's joined. Thank you very much for joining. As Marianne said, we know that summer, we're competing with vacations and people getting back into the swing of things and everything like that. So we really appreciate your attention and attendance today. I will forewarn you, it sounds like my neighbor has just decided to reshingle his house and start today. So it may sound at times like somebody's going to come through the roof. It often sounds like that to me right now, but I'll be brief. I did just want to give everybody a quick intro into Lixar fueled by BDO, if you're not already familiar with us. We are a long-standing Microsoft partner. We're Octo Gold certified, which means we are certified as experts across 8 different areas within the Microsoft technology stack. But a little bit of history with Lixar itself. We are a technology-focused professional services firm. We're based out of Ottawa, but we have offices in Toronto and Halifax. However, in 2020, we joined forces with BDO, hence why our name is now Lixar, fueled by BDO. And the reasoning around that was really to bolster the collective position and successes we've enjoyed as companies in the Canadian and the international market. So as a result, Lixar primarily had been focused on application development, cloud enablement, advanced analytics, and AI. And joining forces with BDO has really just expanded our ability to be able to service the market across the board. So with things like cloud infrastructure and engineering, onboarding and enablement, continue to do application development, application modernization, which is a big theme this year, I know, for Microsoft and their partners, advanced analytics and AI, along with machine learning and strategy and enablement to build practices like that. We help a lot of customers do that. And also focusing on cybersecurity and IT risk and control. So it's been a really great year getting to know all of the colleagues at BDO and implementing our teams together so that we can really build out a full 360 technology practice that services our customers. So with that said, why are we presenting today? Well, we have extensive experience in the financial services industry. We have a history of helping Canada's largest banks and insurers, credit unions, asset and wealth management firms as well, really focus on how we can enable them to modernize the way they do business through advanced analytics. That's what we're here to talk about today. So very excited about that. So, whether it's conducting application currency audits, modernizing the way organizations and financial services conduct risk assessments, or helping customers meet regulatory compliance through data modernization. So things like in the insurance industry, like IFRS 17, we're really focused on finding out and getting to know and building expertise as to what the key drivers are for technological innovation in the financial services industry, and helping our customers explore and navigate those waters. Finally, I'll say, we're very, very proud of our relationship and our partnership with Microsoft over the years. As I said before, it is a long-standing one. We've enjoyed mutual success, helping financial institutions operate more efficiently and competitively through their adoption of Azure. And also through the enablement and leveraging of services like Azure Synapse, Azure ML, Databricks, Power BI, and so on. So with that, we will post some accelerator offerings that we have and that we'd like to offer to our customers that's in the Microsoft marketplace. We're very proud of the number of offerings that we have to help financial services and other customers in other industries advance their Azure journey. Things like a Synapse Jumpstart, a data modernization and a modern data warehouse platform jumpstart, and so forth. So we will be sure to post those links, and in any follow-up that happens, we'll be sure that you have access to those jumpstart offerings, just in case your organization is interested in leveraging those. But that's really about it. So again, I'd just like to welcome everybody to the Analytics in a Day workshop. We've got a full agenda, so I'll stop talking because I have a tendency to enjoy hearing the sound of my own voice. And with that, I will pass it over to the next person. So thank you and enjoy.
Thanks so much, Craig. And we'll now have Kevin.
Yes, hello everyone. Right, can people see the, I just have to switch sides. Can most people see the Azure Synapse Analytics Financial Services?
Yep, all good.
Okay, excellent. So welcome everyone. As Marianne pointed out, the first part of this presentation is really focused on understanding Azure Synapse and Azure Synapse Analytics. Then we're going to talk about Microsoft Assessment Offer, and then really the exciting part comes when we move to the hands-on lab. And your main presenters will be myself. I'm the lead for discovery and consulting at Lixar, and also Kelsey, who is one of our data architects, and he'll be running the hands-on lab. So let's, without further ado, dig right into it. It starts fairly general, and we'll get narrow quickly, but clearly, today, all businesses are data businesses. Data is the lifeblood of modern work, and data is crucial to businesses of all sizes, and securing data is mandatory. And not only is data the lifeblood, but all businesses need to be analytic businesses. You're collecting a lot of data, and if it's just sitting there and not being leveraged, well, it just becomes a cost center. And businesses need to, at the very least, understand themselves from their accounting to their inventory. And the ability to empower workers through democratized access to data analytics is going to be a big theme coming up, and even leveraging that a step further and moving towards augmented intelligence, seeing patterns that we cannot through machine learning and things like that. And that next step of just going beyond analytics. The analytics takes a look at what's happened in the past and moving to something that is predictive is a big theme, and we're seeing that through a lot of our data science practice. And we have quite a strong bench of data scientists from former university professors to new grads who really know data science and can apply the most advanced models for you. So clearly the cloud is the solution for modern analytics. Rather than doing things on-prem, it's the default choice, I would say, to start in the cloud. Applications, first of all, if you need to integrate with any other applications, they're increasingly cloud native. Collaboration platforms, file sharing are all transforming, and hybrid businesses are replacing on-premise data management. So definitely the default choice. Sorry, I went backwards there. Yeah, and it's also we talk a lot about the advantages of the cloud, and I'm sure if you're on this call, you've probably heard these points before, but nevertheless, the price, performance, and agility, that ability to scale and avoid those huge CapEx costs and replace it with pay as you go, or in some cases, some reserved instances, really is a game changer for IT. And it's really the hub for all data models, whether you're talking about structured, unstructured, streaming data, integrated into a single scalable environment.
So that's the process?
Sorry, is someone asking a question?
Oh, okay. Just to check.
No, I think we just ask anybody that's not on mute, please mute
I'll
yourselves.
stick them in now.
So if someone can, like, Marianne, can you see who's not on mute and mute them?
I've just done that. Yeah.
Okay,
Everyone.
wonderful. Yeah, so data often gets siloed. We see this time and again as a new project kicks off, then a new silo of data gets created. But the ability to create a hub and uncover that richness in data, looking across data sets, that's very valuable. And being able to tie your visualization or data science tools to that data lake or data warehouse that has those multiple data sources is incredibly powerful. And the best way to do that, of course, is the cloud. All right, so we're past the generalities here, and we're going to talk about the paradox of analytics. And you probably see this in your own business, where it's really easy to collect data. And we see worldwide the data is growing about 400%. If we look at this five-year period here from 2020 to 2025. But less than 30% gets analyzed. And I would argue it's even lower than that in terms of data that gets meaningfully analyzed. And so analytics and AI is the number one investment for business leaders. However, there's this recognition that, yes, we have lots of data and we need to do something with it. However, there's this struggle, whether it's extensive data wrangling, spending a lot of time trying to get a hold of that data, or maybe it's data governance, whether you can actually trust the data that you get your hands on. All of that tends to be a challenge. And having a single source, ideally in Azure Cloud, is the right approach to get everything together, make sure it's standardized, make sure you can look across data silos, and that's where you're going to get the richness and the value out of your analytics. I've sort of hinted at this point because I see this time and again where people spin up solutions and they create silos, whether it's a data silo, whether it's a technology silo, or a skill silo. So it's really difficult for, of course, data professionals to learn every single skill. So they might go back to what they're used to doing, and if you have a variety of different teams, then you can really be split on what's being used in your organization. And so this is fundamentally the paradox, is that each new technology creates another siloed operation, whether it's big data, data integration, machine learning, business intelligence, data governance, or security. There's a lot of silos in a modern organization, often. And the promise of Azure Synapse is to create that single hub. Now I'm going to talk about the analytics continuum and how these silos do lead to a problem where it's a skill shortage, essentially. And we want to move beyond simple dashboards, but there's so many different skills that are required for some of these operations that it's a big challenge. So ideally, what we want is have a single, sometimes called a pane of glass, a single way you can look at data, and that pane of glass ideally adapt to the language, the programming language that you know already. And that's what Azure Synapse does. So whether you want to program in Python or not, there's an alternative for you. And so the ideal, and you see this repeated in several times in this presentation, is that Azure Synapse delivers a full continuum of analytics in a single service. Triple underline the word single service. So what are we talking about when we talk about a single service? So take a look at this slide, and this is your standard data lake organization, right? You have on the far left-hand side your data inputs, whatever they are. And then you have your ingestion and orchestration tool in the form of Azure Data Factory, which maybe does some light transformations as well. Then Azure Databricks is going to do the heavier, more intensive transformations to the data. And it's going to talk to the Azure Data Lake storage, and same with, and once that's maybe cleaned up and made more usable for the end user, maybe that moves to the SQL data warehouse. And then interfacing with that is Azure Machine Learning and Power BI. All very useful independent tools. But the promise of Azure Synapse is to take these individual items and replace it with a single integrated service. So it goes all the way from data ingestion to all the data transformations. It has its own version of Databricks, and then data warehousing. So it allows you to merge transactional data. Well, not merge. It allows you to operate on transactional data and do analytics on that transactional data without having to do ETL, extract, inform, and load, and move it to a different data lake to then start doing your data science on it. You can use the most up-to-date transactional data that you have. And this is the promise of Azure Synapse Analytics, is this integrated overall one single service. And what's really powerful about it is the native integrations with Azure Machine Learning and Power BI, which is a leading data visualization tool. So Microsoft says that Azure Synapse Analytics is the first unified cloud-native platform for converged analytics. And it's the only unified platform for analytics, blending big data, data warehousing, and data integration into a single cloud service for end-to-end analytics at a cloud scale. And that's the huge promise of it, is this single single service. So what I think the main point when Microsoft made this slide was that this unified experience, once you're in Azure Synapse, you can manage everything, you can monitor it, you can set up your security, you can even create Power BI dashboards, all within one single pane of glass and one view. And also, you don't need to even leave that view to run SQL or Spark. It's all one unified experience. And just to emphasize that point again, traditionally what has happened is that you have data science with data scientists working on their data lake. It's quick, it's fast, experimentation, but it doesn't really meet the needs of the business who want quick lookup, rock solid performance. So it's not bursty. It's just we know we're going to get this absolute rock solid performance, and things are going to be more structured. It's not about experimentation. It's about dealing with the data that we can absolutely trust and we need for transactions, for example. But maintaining these two is a challenge. But what happens if Azure Synapse could combine the two and you don't need to maintain two different data sources? So that's really the promise. And how do they do it? So it's really powered by this new cloud native distributed SQL engine. So whether you want to spin up serverless pay per query type deals, which is better for your data scientists, or maybe you want dedicated, predictable performance and reserve some servers. Either way, it doesn't matter. Azure Synapse can accommodate what you need. So let's dive a little bit deeper in exploring some of the further advantages of Azure Synapse. As we're talking to financial services, clearly security and compliance is going to be absolutely top of mind. We're not going to go through these individually, but later on I have a slide of top global banks who have adopted Azure Synapse. And if the U.S. Department of Defense is adopting Azure Synapse, you know that the main or every security requirement is possible. So whether it's data at rest or in transit, it's going to be protected. You can have very fine-tuned access control, very fine-tuned authentication, network security is extensive, and then some automated threat protection as well. And so top-notch security. I won't go into any more detail about this. They also, well, I think if anyone knows the advantage of working with a cloud provider is that they being able to hand off some of the network maintenance work is very useful. And so if doing that, enabling automated management of virtual networks is obviously possible. So you don't need to get into fine-tuned management of subnets or IP ranges, nothing like that. So you just set up your compliance boundary and things should work. Data governance. So this is about understanding the flow of data, how it moves through your organization, and making sure who changes it and if they're allowed to change it. And Microsoft has been working really hard on something called Azure Purview. Azure Synapse has native integration with this, and the ability to automatically discover, classify data assets, and really understand how that data flowed through your organization, that data lineage, is important because ultimately, as you move towards creating, say, for example, machine learning models. If you can't trust your data, well, it's garbage in, garbage out. And so really making sure that you know where the data came from and you really trust it, and people who don't have the permission to change it aren't changing it. That's critical.
Kevin,
So this talks about how there's
Kevin?
yeah.
Let me just stop for a minute. We have a question in the chat I'd like to address before we move too far.
Yeah.
We have, is the ingestion tool of choice for feeding Synapse Azure Data Factory?
Is the data ingestion?
Oh, sorry, is the ingestion tool of choice for feeding Synapse Azure Data Factory?
So, is it the thing of choice? Yes,
Yeah, I could answer that, Kevin. Azure Synapse is about 3 different Microsoft Azure tools put into one platform. So you have Power BI for the visualization. You have the data warehouse, which was called Microsoft Azure Data Warehouse prior. Now it's called Azure Synapse. And then you have ADF, Azure Data Factory, which is now separate from Synapse, which was a separate identity, but now it's brought into Azure Synapse. So you have all those 3 tools working together seamlessly.
But I think the question was, is it the ingestion tool of choice? Is it, or you
It's the only, it's part of Synapse, ADF now. So it's the only tool that you could use to ingest. It's not the only tool, but it's the preferred tool. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Does that answer your question, Donald?
I see in the chat. Thanks, acknowledged.
Thanks.
Tool, thanks. Thanks, Kevin.
This actually gets at a little bit of Donald's question, is that yes, Data Factory is preferred, but there's lots of connectors out there, 95 of them, that allow you to connect to different data sources. So, and they're really pushing this, let's say, flexible way to ingest data. If code first is your preference, you can do that. If low code is your preference, you can do that. If no code is your preference and you want to use sort of a visual drag and drop scenario to create your pipelines, that's also possible. And you can schedule things, event-based triggering. All of that of course, it's possible in code first. But if you've ever played around with Azure Data Factory, you also know you can do that in a code-free approach as well. Well, more points. Actually, what's neat about this slide is that this is essentially Azure Synapse. You can see on the left-hand side a bunch of different tabs, and that really moves the desktop to whatever you want to do within Azure Synapse, whether it's look at your data, ingest your data, transform your data, all of that. And if your organization is one that prefers to deal with no code, low code data transformation, you can do that essentially in Excel. It looks to me like Excel, and then you can operationalize this into pipelines once you understand it, and you can visually see that what you want to have happen is happening. Well, this is Data Factory here. You can see some things being dragged here, and you can do this in real time. This is what's kind of amazing to me, is that you can do analytics on essentially transactional data. So, operational systems. You don't need to do that. Maintain the two systems, ETL, between transactional and then what your data scientists want to work on. You can just work within Azure Synapse Analytics. All right, so this moves us to the financial services perspective, and how modern banking works with Azure Synapse Analytics. So I'm going to slow down going forward for this section. This slide really gives you a bunch of stats essentially that point out that banking is changing, whether it's fraud detection, whether it's new customer experiences, personal experience, mobile. Banking is changing, and so just some facts about how you need to be ready for these changes. And Azure Synapse and Azure overall is a very well-trusted brand for top financial services organizations. And you can see some of the Fortune 500 financial services organizations on this list who use Microsoft Azure. This is Microsoft's view on the top use cases for the next wave of what banking's gonna look like. So you can see in the top section there, industry priority scenarios. Do you want to deliver differentiated customer experience? Perhaps fight back against the non-bank fintechs out there. Well, in that case, we have some use cases for banking personalization. Or perhaps you want to modernize payments and core banking. Well, that's been what we call modernized banking. There's a little bit of an arms race, as we hear about in the press, between the criminals and the financial security. If your goal is to combat financial crime, then we have some use cases for fraud detection. And then empowering employees through teamwork, empowering remote work, which of course is a huge theme in the last year and a half. So what I'm going to do is talk about these use cases one by one. Let's talk about banking personalization. So yes, growing competition from cloud-native fintech companies. They're definitely cloud-native, and is open banking going to come to Canada? So sort of these worries about that and being ready for making that stronger personal connection with their customers and meeting those customer expectations that are evolving over time. And can you bring together that siloed, fragmented, often unstructured consumer data? And if it's on legacy mainframes or otherwise, or on-premises systems, can you move that to the cloud or set up a very workable hybrid solution? That's the top challenges for next generation banking personalization. Talk about some of the, I guess, use cases of this. Can you predict and deliver what customers want before they ask? Lixar does a lot of predictive maintenance, data science, and AI, and also just understanding the customers and saying what's next. What do we predict that is going to happen? Definitely a strong suit for Lixar data scientists. And perhaps you want to leverage customer insights to provide exceptional client value. That's another opportunity. And just knowing your customer, making sure you can bring together those data silos so you understand how they access their banking, what their banking needs are, and other connections there. So getting those customer insights is key. So how do you do it? Well, you're going to see that version of the slide throughout the presentation, and that is the breakdown between modern applications, intelligent data and AI, and scalable and reliable infrastructure. So if we're talking about banking personalization, part of that would be managing customer relationships, and for that, Microsoft would suggest Microsoft Dynamics 365. And moving things to the cloud, or at least maturing your DevOps practice to streamline your development. Intelligent data and AI, this is where Lixar could really help, especially is just whether it's predicting what's going to happen, or managing staffing at a call center, or being able to route initial calls to a faster and the correct customer service representative, and reduce queue times in call centers. All of that can be bolstered by AI models. Whether it is to construct a 360-degree customer view to understand patterns, predict customer needs, kind of the same thing as I've just been talking about. But how do you do it? How do you leverage, whether it's simple analytics, where you're just looking at visualization, or layered on top of that, there's more sophisticated AI models that a human wouldn't be able to pull out those trends. But if the model does pull out the trends and presents it to someone, they can act on it. That's the promise of banking personalization, of course. And scalable and reliable infrastructures. I think this is not going to change very much, but for all of these financial services next generation promises. But they're all the advantages of the cloud, right? It's the ability to scale, whether it's scaling vertically or horizontally. So yeah, just being able to do that without that long on-premise acquisition, asset acquisition process. Just being able to click a few things and being able to scale up, or even doing scale up automatically. And all the promises of high availability, disaster recovery, and reliability that cloud providers offer. So what could you hope to achieve with banking personalization? Democratize insights. We'll see this quite a lot in, I guess, Microsoft's latest pushes of what can we do? How do we push these insights out to the people who are actually dealing with the customers? So it's not an analytics team at headquarters who will only have access to the results and then have to communicate it out. But how do you democratize it? How do other people have access to these models, or even the ability to create their own tweaks to the model? And delivering real-time insights is based on transactional data. That's that ability to combine the transactional data with your analytics, so you're not maintaining two different data sets. That's a big promise for banking personalization. And these things, of course, lead to enhanced customer loyalty if you're delivering what they need on a real-time basis, and customized to what they need, of course, and improve the marketing effectiveness. If you're enhancing customer loyalty, your marketing's only going to go along with that. So that's banking personalization. Now let's talk about modernized banking. So this is basically this idea that financial services have been hit with non-compliance problems, and money laundering problems, and sanctions even. And banking organizations are collecting more data than ever. But as I said at the very outset of this presentation, that's really tricky because, just because you're collecting data, if you're not analyzing it, if you're not acting on it, then it's just kind of a cost center, and you need to take that extra step to begin to analyze it and make sure you have good data governance, so it's not a big pile of untrusted data. And yeah, the same point that was on the personalized banking is, breaking down those data silos that I talked about in the beginning, getting it into a single hub. That's that's really a key part of everything I'm talking about today. So how does modernized banking work? Well, whether you're streamlining onboarding, enhancing customer service, or providing intelligent insights, in a way, this is kind of just a rewording of the personalization. But how do you meet customer needs and do it well and in a predictive way, in a personalized way, and do that with analytics or machine learning. So how would we recommend to do this? Well, modern applications, just hooking some things up to Power BI, one of the leading data visualization tools, is a step in the right direction. If you've ever used Microsoft Power Apps, that's a great way to design custom applications. And they have some Power Apps that really enable non-developers, subject matter experts who maybe know their business area very well, but they're not developers. But Power Apps really opens the door for them to create something custom just for themselves. And repeating and repetitive processing, reducing waste, and enhancing employee collaboration. Well, that's part of Microsoft's 365. But where Lixar would play more is the intelligent data and AI, harnessing data warehousing services, big data analytics to query enterprise data at scale, and forecasting. Whether that's big data or maybe on a smaller scale, either way, being able to do these queries quickly at scale is important. Data lakes, well, I showed you a classic example of what a sort of components of data lakes setup may look like. But Azure Synapse really brings that together. And if you combine that with machine learning and AI, well, that gets the whole point of this personalization and predictive nature. And the scalable and reliable infrastructure, well, modernize your data center and platforms. Financial services organizations, sometimes are loath to change because security and predictability are so important. But if you can change the platform upon which you operate, that really opens up different business opportunities. So business outcomes of modernized banking. Well, increase customer acquisition and streamline processes, whether that's understanding your customers or predicting what they need next. That's that. Reducing risk of exposure to financial penalties. I'm no expert in this, but this goes along with data governance and making sure that you know where your data is and it's trusted and you're not breaking whatever rules are established for the data. Overcome legacy constraints, streamline legacy data sources to real-time data platforms for secure and scalable use and transformative business initiatives with modern analytic tools. That really spills over to the next point. And that is that, if you think about what you can build, a lot of what you can build depends on the tools that you're given. And if you're, just to make this as a strange analogy, if you're only given a screwdriver and a saw, well, that limits what you can build. But if you're given more powerful tools, then you can build more things. And understanding that the opportunities that are enabled by having all your data in a single hub and being able to do analysis on near real-time data it opens up all sorts of different opportunities, different revenue streams, maybe strategic pricing models, and if you have AI tools running on top of this, maybe giving you data-driven insights in near real time, that it also sort of opens up new data views and in turn new business models. Let's talk about fraud detection. So it's particularly the one in the middle. I guess historic fraud detection tools remain largely siloed across channels and banking systems. And Microsoft's calling out this idea that fraud detection systems need to continuously evolve and learn from changing patterns of cybercrime. And so there's a lot of investment. I think one of the early statistics of the outset of this section was what how much money is being spent on fraud detection by financial institutions. So what are the key steps in fraud detection? Well, onboarding legitimate customers, but also closing the door to those fraudulent or sanctioned entities, and lowering the number of false positives. So the people you want get in the door quickly, and the people you don't are quickly denied. Identifying and thwarting malicious users. Right, so just analyzing behavioral and response patterns post login to determine whether they're genuine and stop malicious activity. Obviously, a human can't do this. Couldn't do this. Be too much overwhelming amount of data, and you'd have questions about privacy as well. But can you have models that do this? Then and flag situations early and sort of close down that malicious activity. Going along with that, the ensuring legitimate transactions and winning the arms race against criminals. And how might you do that? Well, leveraging machine learning and cutting edge security technology to quickly identify criminal transaction patterns and anomalies. So, one simple way to characterize this is just it's pattern detection. What's going on? What's different? Has there been any changes? And if there is, flag it. So what would we suggest for fraud detection with Microsoft Azure? Well, of course, your modern applications staying up to date with compliance requirements, and especially for security professionals are in high demand, and being able to rely on Microsoft's top worldwide experts in securing applications and securing control is a huge benefit. The next one, intelligent data and AI. Well, that's basically what I was talking about in the previous slide. This is using models to detect anomalous behavior, what's different, and protect against laundering, prevent fraud and financial crime. But at the same time, letting the people you want in quickly. Which is all you need to rely on AI to do it, because it's just too much for humans couldn't do it at speed or in the volume we're talking about. And scalable and reliable infrastructure, right? I mean, if you can scale your data analytics, then you can do things faster. You can, and because you can do things faster, then it's not so much of a lift to go more granular, or model or simulate, and do this across data silos and do this in a high performance way. And yeah, and you can scale up as needed. So it's not a fixed amount, but maybe something very important happens, and you need to run new models. That's possible very, very easily. And lower compliance costs by protecting customers and staff with multi-factor authentication, identity services across touch points. Yeah, I mean, this is this point of find those anomalies, but still get the people you want in quickly and do it with the personalization and customer 360 view that customers are expecting. So what are the business outcomes of fraud detection? Well, I've repeated these, but quickly onboard the people you want and keep out the people you don't. So that's identify and thwart malicious users, ensure legitimate transactions, get the automatic screening and flexible tools to minimize false alerts, and of course regulatory compliance is very important. And all of this adds up to winning the race against malicious actors. So however you're doing that is perhaps machine learning or cutting edge security technology. Someone have a question? Okay, I'll finish the financial services section with a little case study. about ABN AMRO. So they're the leading global bank, and the situation was that they had two aging, very expensive to maintain Teradata systems that housed business critical information and processes of customers, marketing, and financial reporting data. And they wanted a secure and integrated platform that was able to decouple consumers from data providers. And so their solution was to move towards Azure Data Warehouse and Azure Synapse Analytics to transform those two services. And so, well, the solution is written there, but Teradata systems were very expensive, and so by using Azure, they were able to save about 70% by doing reserved capacity. So that is maybe reserving virtual machines for a year or 3 years, and because you know you're going to use that compute or storage, and being able to save some money there, and reducing operational complexity. Maybe perhaps their costs were driven by their staffing, and these Teradata systems were just really complicated to maintain. And when you're able to offload some of that operational complexity onto Azure, well, that's a win. And increased agility by decoupling customers from data providers. IBM AMRO was able to bring new services and use cases much more quickly. That's what I was talking about earlier in terms of, the revenue models and services you're able to offer really depend on your infrastructure, the platform from which you're operating on. And if you and if you can move to the cloud or at least hybrid, then it opens up new services and new use cases. Strong security, of course. We didn't go into it in too much detail, but ABN AMRO was looked at the cloud providers and chose Azure Synapse because it was considered the most secure, and other cloud options were too risky for a bank to implement. They also had better data insights. The new platform created an integrated data platform. So this is the key thing that Synapse's big promises is integrated, single hub, all of that. So you're no longer siloing your data, and give the company an easy view across those data silos, whether it's customer data, marketing data, financial data, and that just lets users, and they're not specifying who those are, but maybe it's head of marketing, maybe it's frontline customer service representatives, whatever it is, those users are able to make better business decisions because they can get all the data from a single source. All right, two more quick sections here, and some of it is just a visual representation of some of the things I've mentioned in passing, and that is that traditionally you'd have an operational database, and you would have maybe a data lake or something flexible that the data scientists would be working on to do their data analytics. And you'd have to do your ETL and maintain these two different data sources. But Synapse does away with that, and you're able to do analytics upon the operational data. So no ETL is required, and amazingly, no performance impact on transactions. So you're operating on real-time data. So how do they do it? And then sort of this is, you have Azure Cosmos DB, where it has a transactional store. So all the data is row store optimized for transactional operations, so single operations. But at the same time, the same database is maintained also as an analytical store, like column store optimized for analytical queries. So that's things like summing or looking across to find differences or maxes or mins, whatever it is within that column. So this is the promise where you have no data integration pipelines required. There's no interaction on operational systems and low latency. So this is how I've said a couple times about this ability to analyze on your operational or transactional data without slowing down it. So machine learning, very important. Next phase, so moving beyond your basic dashboard and moving towards predictive insights. And the way, I guess, Azure Synapse is said at the very beginning is that what we don't want to create silos based on skills. And so one of the big pushes for Azure Synapse is to let you work the way you want to work. So whether that's notebooks, a Jupyter notebook, for example, if you're a really strong coding organization, or maybe you have business experts that are comfortable getting their hands a little bit dirty, but don't want to change careers, and they don't want to become a software developer. Well, there are low code or no code solutions as well. And things like classification or regression for predictive operations or time series data, all of this is possible. And even the further step is that pre-built models. So this is so amazing once you get into Azure Synapse is just saying, well, all I have is data. And then you can bring in the data and use some of these pre-built models to do anomaly detection or sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is natural language processing to say, analyze what this person wrote. Are they happy? Are they angry? Sort of and group it. It's a version of classification essentially, but it's based on natural language processing. And so even low code, no code, I hope that, I don't know if the lab today is, but if you don't, take a look at some of Microsoft's training in terms of being able to create machine learning models in a no code manner. Incredibly easy. And it's worth checking out if you haven't already. And it's called Synapse Studio, if you're looking for it. Of course, what's the use of data if you can't communicate it? Well, that's where Power BI comes in. And really what you've probably seen this type of slide before where, this is sort of the analytics curve, but it's a line where the most basic is sort of a backward looking descriptive analysis. What has happened already? Okay, but what happens if you take the next step and say, why did it happen? What were the causes of this? Or take it even in the next step, predictive analysis. What do we believe will happen next? And then the fourth level is prescriptive analysis. How do we make it happen? Because if we know why things happen and we know we have a prediction, well, maybe we can work with the inputs to sort of change what we think the predictive analysis is to be something positive or reinforce it if it already was positive, for example. So moving from backward looking hindsight to insights to foresight and actually beginning to influence that next step. This is what they talk about as the analytics curve. Right. So how do you do that? Well, Azure Synapse Analytics sits in the middle of this. You have Power BI as your traditional visualization tool, but you have Azure Machine Learning, which is no code or low code or code first. Whatever your approach is, it has native integration with Azure Synapse Analytics. So you can work with your data in near real time, transactional data with machine learning and visualize it in Power BI for this seamless collaboration. And this is more or less the same point, is that, once everything is in this single hub, you can respond instantly. Enable instant response time with Power BI aggregations. That's incredibly powerful. Or maybe you want to get granular with your data. Do those really fine queries to pull out the few people that you're looking for in the millions or tens of millions of records. Save money with industry-leading performance. Right. So we didn't really go into this, but there are several studies that Microsoft has that points out to how powerful Synapse is with this new modern integrated SQL approach. And of course, what I've mentioned a bunch of times already is that it's the hub. It's the single pane of glass. It's you don't need to worry about configuring and connecting Power BI. You don't need to worry about configuring and connecting Azure Machine Learning. It's already there. It's already natively integrated with it. With single, you can just flip from between tabs and go from, big, just regular queries to doing Power BI dashboards. It's that single pane of glass power. So, well, we're talking to the financial services group, so maybe you'd be interested in this, but according to a Forrester report, customers had 271% average return on investment by using Azure Synapse and Power BI. Big improvement for customer satisfaction, improved faster time to insights, and overall lower total cost of ownership. So yeah, just there is value in there, and I think it's yes, okay, it's valuable, and you can save time, and that's useful for you to make a business case to your stakeholders. But it's for me, it also goes back to this ability of, if you can change the platform upon which you're operating, that's the big promise. That's the uncover new business models, new approaches. That's in addition to the cost savings that Forrester reports. So I've been talking about things generally from a Microsoft point of view. Now I'm going to have a single slide on Lixar fueled by BDO. So as Craig mentioned at the outset, we're Ottawa-based, but we have Toronto offices, Halifax offices, and even a few people out west as well. And we're a premier AI and data company, and we help clients discover how AI and data can be leveraged to provide actionable data-driven outcomes. So whether that's customizing your cloud, maybe even moving you to the cloud, whatever it is, however where you are on your cloud adoption journey, Lixar has services to help you. Or maybe however you are on that analytics curve, if you're at analytics looking backwards and you just have dashboards, we can help you with that. We have a strong Power BI practice. But maybe you want to move to the next step and involve data scientists, get some predictive and prescriptive models in. We can help you with that as well. And we're not a new kid on the block. We've been doing this for about 20 years and developing connected software solutions. So whether that's data science and AI, cloud platform as a service, edge computing, general IT infrastructure, architecting, and even strategy and advisory to help move you and figure out maybe what AI approach you should take, or what should be the next step in our cloud maturity evolution. It's also backed by software developers. So whether that's mobile or web, whether that's front end or back end, with some UI UX people as well. And then, the rest of it sort of goes along with everything else, connected platforms, legacy system transformation. Well, that goes along with the data practice and the SDK or API development. So that goes along with your mobile/web backend development. So yeah, please reach out to us at the end, and yeah, let us know where your pain points are and where Lixar can help. We'd love to talk to you. So with that, Marianne, it's actually not quite a break because I'm
Thanks.
going to hand it over to you, and then you're going to hand it over to Microsoft.
Yes, we have, it looks like Paul is in the meeting.
I am. Hello.
Are you able to access as a presenter? Like you can put your slides out?
I think I should be able to. Let's try.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I'll stop just a sec.
Thanks so much, Kevin. That was inspiring to see the art of the possible. And we're going to have Paul walk us through a data assessment that Microsoft had designed. So he's going to walk us through that program and let us know what it is and how to access it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you, everyone, for your time. You can see my screen, I assume?
All
Excellent.
good?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, we can
All
see.
right. I'll just take a few minutes of your time. Just want to walk you through a program we here have at Microsoft that we do alongside our partners like Lixar, which is called the Solution Assessment Program. I'm a solution assessment consultant here at Microsoft. And really, what is a solution assessment? Our solution assessments are really designed to use modern tools to collect data and or provide consulting services to get insights into your entire IT environment, as well as business processes, and ultimately provide data-driven recommendations and actionable steps for whether it be for digital transformation, cloud migration, and or process improvement. We've got 4 core different assessments. You can see them on the right there. We have data and infrastructure migration, we have analytics, application modernization, and modern workplace. And each of those also have some optional insights that could be available, such as AVS or Azure Virtual Desktop or SAP on Azure. Most of these assessments provide a comprehensive Power BI, a custom Power BI report, and an executive summary presentation at the end of them. These are fully funded and resourced by Microsoft alongside our key partners like Lixar. And most of these assessments generally take between 3 to 6 weeks. So really, where does an assessment fit kind of in the process? They can be a very valuable tool to help you assess and discover as part of that either your digital transformation, migration, or process improvement. So we really play kind of in the first phase. If you look at a typical 4-phase migration and optimization strategy, the assessment is really designed to be utilized primarily upfront at the beginning of that journey. So today I wanted to walk you through an idea of really what is our a data and analytics assessment. And really what these are designed for, working with our partners like Lixar, is to build out a data optimization strategy, an Azure analytics architecture, and an adoption roadmap for a modern data platform. We kind of approach these in 3 different phases. We kind of take a look at the business strategy, determine any gaps that may exist, and then ultimately build out a future state architecture. I apologize if this slide's already been presented, but really, if we look at kind of the digital transformation to advanced AI, it started with business intelligence, kind of what has happened and getting static reports on what has happened with the business. Generally, these tended to be highly manual processes, which led to decisions and actions. And then it's kind of evolved into why did it happen? So interactive dashboards, but still a fair amount of manual processes involved. And ultimately, what we're looking to achieve, or most organizations, is really kind of getting to a more predictive model. So what will happen? Can it be prescriptive, and can we make recommendations on what I should do? And can these things be repeatable? Can we automate a lot of these processes? So the analytics and data assessment is designed specifically to help move forward along that journey. So as I mentioned before, we've got 3 phases. The first is to review and understand your business strategy. This involves a series of collaborative workshops to review business plans, problems and risks. We'll review your existing analytics and reporting platforms, IoT processes, and use cases. The second phase is gap planning. Here we'll document your current pain points. We'll assess your current analytics maturity state by reviewing everything from platform architecture, how people work and their capabilities, through to government's considerations and the as-is architecture security state, ultimately leading to that future state architecture, where we can create a data optimization strategy, provide Azure consumption estimates, best practices, and again, that actionable adoption roadmap. Here's an example of the different collaborative workshops that are typically part of an analytics assessment. We have the various business groups on the left, and there you can see the kind of the scope and the different attendees we would try to involve in each of those different workshops, the various timelines included. As far as the timing of these assessments, generally the first week is focused in on those stakeholder workshops. Week 2 is where we focus in on gap planning. And week 3 is really where we get to the presentation of that future state plan. And then from there, you'll have the ability to hopefully ideally work on those next steps that are identified. I want to give you an idea, just some example ideas of what you can expect as some of the deliverables as part of one of these assessments. We'll walk through kind of what was the summary of the business planning that was involved, from the various different entities, in this case here, the CEO, the digital team, the supply chain team, the operations team. What was the feedback that we gathered as part of those collaborative workshops? As we mentioned before, in the gap planning phase, we take a look and perform kind of a mini maturity assessment, where we do take a look at, platform architecture, data science and analytics, the ways of working, what are the people and their capabilities, and again, that governance, security, and standards. So we'll review that and what those findings are. To build out a use case summary, we kind of take a look at short-term and long-term goals across all of those various different business segments. And ultimately leading to that future state architecture. In this case, we'll present the kind of the vision. There's 6 key items in this case in this sample for Contoso that we're recommending in order for them to get to that future state. Again, we'll review kind of the current state architecture and then expand on that to show the future platform architecture as well as the data optimization strategy. And then ultimately leading to that, that roadmap with key timelines and objectives, as well as full steps for all of the different business entities on what to do to move forward down that journey. So, as I mentioned, these assessments are fully funded by Microsoft. They're delivered alongside by Microsoft and Lixar. I'm sure you've been told about the survey for this event, but there is a survey. Please fill out that survey. Within that survey, you will find a question that does allow you to request a solution assessment for your organization. So if this is something that you think would be of value to your organization, or any one of the other solution assessments that we talked about, the other 3 aside from data and analytics, by all means, please fill out that survey, and someone from Lixar will be back in touch so we can get that process started. And thank you very much for allowing me to have the time.
Thanks so much, Paul. That was great.